The Wander and Reason Podcast. The crossroads of philosophy and practicality, where we explore such ideas with sincerity. And our intro music is as long as the intellectual dilemmas that we have debated eons upon eons in our heads.
Welcome to episode number 1 of the Wander and Reason podcast. I'm your host, Zach Kuva, from the Wander and Reason blog at wanderandreason.com, and really excited to kick it off with the first episode. So, what is our blog about? What is our podcast about? Do you say? Well, if you follow the blog, kind of talking about work, life, autonomy, philosophy, kind of like what is it all in a grand sense, kind of just also what are some of the practical things that you can do in your life to kind of regain control of kind of those aspects that we kind of over time they get away from us. You know, it's very easy when you work a job 9 to 5 that maybe you care about, maybe you don't, maybe it's just this thing that you do for the large part of the day, but those are often your most productive hours. You get out of that and you come home and shit, you just want to have a beer, sit down, and kind of recover from that day. And when you do that 5 days a week and compound that year after year, I mean, is a lot of your life that experience? So kind of what I'm seeking to do with the blog and, you know, with this podcast is to kind of just unpack that experience and really dig into some things that we can do to kind of just switch things up, change the status quo, change your mindset. And so that's what I'm going to be doing. So some of these podcasts, they're going to have guests. I'll do a little short intro. We'll have a guest. We'll talk about maybe a topic, maybe, you know, meander about, and we'll do an outro for it. This first one, I just wanted to just do a solo one. So I don't have a specific topic that I really want to get into today. But what I did want to do is, please, if you haven't already, check out the website, wanderandreason.com. There's several blogs up there currently, and just kind of talking about all sorts of different stuff. So in no way, shape, or form am I any expert in anything. I'm just some guy that is trying to make sense of it all, kind of like most people are. So sometimes, you know, when we get into these topics, we talk about career or aspirations or purpose or freedom, really. It's easy to take a look at one's own life and then just have this filter of negativity where you look at it and you don't have rose-colored glasses on. You you have dark ones, and you know I combat that myself. Sometimes in the blog, I'll kick it off and I'll start writing and looking around the room wherever I'm writing, and I start, you know, kind of getting a little bit negative with the post, and it's always a conscious decision that I have to make to kind of pause myself, take a moment, kind of stop taking myself so seriously, you know? And I think that's important. A lot of times you get caught up in life, you get caught up in whatever is going on, whatever's the big thing, you know, a crisis at the office, your boss is upset, everyone is stressed out, you take that stress home, you're kind of a dick to whoever you're in a relationship with, you know, you eat unhealthy food, which in turn also makes you feel bad, and, you know, and then you just like, everything is a pile of crap, right? That happens, right? That's a reality of the human experience. That's going to happen to me in the future, right? It's going to always happen. And that's okay. But we just don't want that happening all the time. We don't want to live in that. headspace. So, do I have all the answers? No, I don't. But I'm willing to talk them through and really unpacking kind of what are some of these things deep down. And it might be an internal thing. It might be a societal thing. It might be the way that, you know what, you're designed. It's almost designed, the system. There's not really a system, but I guess there is. It's not like external forces are colluding to make your life negative, right? Intentionally. But I think sometimes we have jobs and I'm focusing on careers a little bit, but we have jobs that maybe are designed the way that they are designed is not an optimal way for your life quality. So it's not to say that the job is going out of its way to make its employees miserable, but maybe it's just you're dealing with a negative thing. Maybe there's a negative office culture. Maybe the product that you're doing, maybe it's a customer service related field, and really you're just getting people, throwing negative things at you all day, and you just don't feel like you're appreciated, right? And if you couple that with maybe an office environment that's a little lackluster, then yeah, it starts to feel that way. So I don't really have some piece of advice that's going to you're going to just completely do a 180 if you're in that type of a mind state, right? Because I'm working it out myself. I'm not perfect. I probably started getting into blogging about this type of stuff or talking about it because I was in that mind space. And maybe that's my bit of advice, is that it helps in some sort of therapeutic sense to just kind of talk these things out, right? Or maybe listen to people that are in a similar headspace, because you can get out of it, right? It's a temporary thing. So that's kind of like one of the things, or kind of just a theme that I'll probably keep coming back to. It's not going to be a very, very serious, somber podcast. Anybody who has read the blogs, I mean, like I was saying earlier in this, I start to write that way. I start to get a little serious. I start to get a little poetic. And then I need to chill myself out and be like, dude, you're not that fucking special. Stop taking yourself so seriously. The world's not ending, right? So yeah, this podcast is not going to be like that. We're going to be able to be pretty straight up and chill and regular and authentic. I think authenticity it's just one of those things that, for me personally, it defines whether I gravitate towards something or not. As soon as I get a sales pitch from somebody, I'm out, man. It's all about, for me, like human interactions, it's all about authenticity. Even a workplace environment, like here at the office, we work from 8 to 5, and you clocked in at 8:03, and that is not acceptable if you're gonna blah blah blah. It's like, yeah, I guess I don't know. I mean, it's just, what is that? You know what I mean? It's just like you have a person who's the boss and they're gonna act in this way, and then you have employees that are stressed about like really just minuscule amount of times clocking in, depending on what industry you're in. Like if you're not salaried, you're an hourly employee or something like that. And I get like people need to be on time and whatever, but it just, people generally, I go back and forth with this, right? People generally, I would say, are not bad. Like most people aren't. They're, people, yeah, they might have operate out of self-interest. And maybe that happens more frequently than it doesn't happen. And maybe that's just a natural thing. I don't know. But like, I feel like very few people are waking up in the morning and like, I'm going to do a horrible job at work today. Can't wait to get to work and fuck around all day long. Not really, right? Most people are kind of like, no, I'm going to go to work, and then I'm going to work, and then I'm going to go home, right? And so a lot of times I think maybe some bad habits people develop or whatever, whoever management is, maybe a poor leader might perceive of those actions as like intentional. Like, you show up late every single day and blah, blah, blah. You haven't listened to anything. And you get this kind of like, people get drunk on their power. And so, is a leadership quality, and I know I'm jumping all over the place, but is a leadership quality, I think there's needs to be an understanding, like on a human level, like everyone's fallible, even the leaders, even the bosses, even the institutions that we have. And it's all imperfect. And we're such a society that like perfection and kind of like this, like a glossy image, a really clear, crisp, display of, a product, a service, a person, an identity, right? Those are the things that we covet. You think about social media profiles, you think about Instagram or Facebook, you go to those sites, and Instagram especially, like, where photos are like the currency. I mean, these are, people have talked about it a lot, but you're not getting a real snapshot of these people's lives. What you're getting is a very curated and edited and strategic image that has been designed by sometimes a team of people to elicit a certain reaction out of the viewer in order to boost follows and likes and influence, and then we have these people that we covet the most, the influencers, and they post something and then, ooh, so-and-so posts this. Did you see what they did? Your Twitter, they got the check mark. Ooh, what an authority. And maybe sometimes they are an authority, right? Sometimes these are some of the best thinkers we have. I mean, Elon Musk has a blue check mark. I'm just using him as an example, but anybody, right? There's brilliance that is out there in the ether mixed with all of kind of the vanity that we also see. And it gets all muddied up. And so it's easy to be like dismissive as well of kind of that thing. But returning to kind of what I was talking about before, is the central thing that I value more than that is authenticity. I value that in other people. I value that in myself. And sometimes we don't live up to it, and we have to kind of recognize that and readjust course. So anyway, so don't really have much else to add. This is just a short intro, first episode. I don't really want to go through and like read my blog posts. Like, hey, I have a trapped audience. Not really, but hey, you're listening to the podcast. So glad of you to tune in. Now I'm going to just read this blog and force you to listen to my words that I've written, because somehow they're very profound. Please check it out. If you like it, wonderful. If it's not for you, and if listening is the format for you, fantastic, cool. It's fine. Sometimes I think with blogs, there's like we have this image in our heads of a blogger, like who that person is. It's like usually kind of like a frail man with like a scarf, kind of like just like a very wispy character that's very opinionated and leaves lots of reviews on Yelp and gets offended very easily. That's the furthest thing from the truth, although that's real. So maybe it's not the furthest thing from the truth. Maybe like a lot of instances of that have created that stereotype. However, I hope that this podcast builds some rapport and you start to realize that not everybody who writes a blog is like that. So anyway, without further ado, a little bit thing about the intro. Intro music right now. It's actually just me playing guitar. And yeah. So I'm thinking intro music, guest. I mean, I'm a big podcast fan, and I always have been for a long time. So it'd be pretty disingenuous if I portrayed myself as kind of just the innovator of anything, because this is definitely a saturated market. But I get a lot of inspiration from some great comedian podcasters like Ari Shafir. I love what he's done with his, and actually he influenced kind of the setup that I have currently. I have one of those Zoom microphones, and what's great about it is it allows me to be portable. If you listen to him, please check it out, Ari Shafir's Skeptic Tank. If you listen to him, he'll do a lot of podcasts out in the streets, walking around New York City or wherever. And so I got a similar, I don't know if it's the exact same thing, but I was kind of, influenced. I might have even read like a Tim Ferriss post that was like, about what type of equipment to get or whatever. But I was definitely influenced or inspired by the ability to kind of just not just have a podcast be this thing that exists in a studio in a confined space, but really something that you can take with you. And I think it adds a lot. So, right now I'm just in my apartment. It's not very picturesque. But going forward, hopefully I will be able to have some interesting guests on, where we can maybe have an interesting setting as well. So some of the people that hopefully I'll be able to get onto this thing. There's a very talented tattoo artist named Charlie Murphy. He's one of my close friends as well, and he has launched quite a successful career in tattooing. So that will be a very interesting one to kind of get into. I just want to get into kind of the history of what happened there. How did he build what he did? What was that process like? Because it wasn't all glamorous, and I saw it when it wasn't, and a lot of people that are successful build it up from kind of grassroots and eating ramen and making it happen, right? And there's always a fear that, I really wish I could do that, but I can't because I have this, and maybe some of that's warranted for some of us, but the reality is, I think we all can kind of push ourselves and do a lot more, whatever that is. You don't have to necessarily be a content creator. You don't have to be like an artist or a musician or a podcaster or a comedian or any of those things. Like, all you really need to do is be you. If you're a welder and you're like, I'm going to make the best welds ever, that's fantastic. There's actually a freaking market for that. Like, obviously in the literal sense, like there's a market for very talented welders, but even just like aesthetically, you could take some nice photos of some high quality weld you did, put those on Reddit, put those on posts or whatever. And then all of a sudden now there's people that are inspired by you just being finely tuned to your craft, right? Whatever that is. So anyway, that about wraps it up. And I said that before, but excited to get this thing launched. So this is our first episode, the Wander and Reason podcast. So I'm hoping that I'll get this thing on kind of, eventually I'll have this everywhere where podcasts are. So I'll have it on iTunes, Castbox app, on Android platform. But for now, please just go to wanderandreason.com. Podcast will be housed there. The blog will be there. And if you have any ideas or you want feedback, please obviously leave me a comment. There's a contact us page. Shoot me an email. I really want this to be kind of engaging, and I really hope that there's a takeaway from it. Again, who am I? I'm just some guy. But I think that there is a little bit of power in that, in being humble when you kind of talk about things that maybe are motivational or advice driven or anything like that. It's kind of like, well, who are you, first of all? It's like, well, I'm just a guy and I'm just talking. So anyway, guys, looking forward to it. Episode 1, Wander and Reason podcast.